Law 1. Never outshine the master. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please or impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you will accomplish the opposite. You will inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. Consider Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister to France's King Louis XIV. To ingratiate himself with the king, Fouquet hosted the most spectacular party the world had ever seen. He intended it as a tribute, a demonstration of his loyalty and good taste. But as the evening unfolded, each new spectacle, each appreciative smile from the guests, made it seem to the king that his own subjects were more charmed by the minister than by the king himself. Fouquet's lavishness was not seen as flattery, but as a flaunting of his own wealth and power. Rather than feeling honored, the king felt insecure, outshined. The very next day, Fouquet was arrested on trumped-up charges. He spent the last 20 years of his life in solitary confinement. He had committed the worst mistake of all. He made the master feel his inferior. Do not fool yourself into thinking life has changed. Those who attain high standing are like kings and queens. They want to feel secure in their positions and superior to those around them in intelligence, wit, and charm. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical. But hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal than a friend, because he has more to prove. You have more to fear from friends than from enemies. If you have no enemies, find a way to make them. In the mid-9th century, the young Byzantine Emperor Michael III needed a loyal counselor. Ignoring the advice of others, he chose his best friend, Basilius, a man who owed him everything. The emperor showered him with gifts, power, and titles. But exposure to the splendor of court life made Basilius avaricious. He convinced Michael that his own uncle, Bardas, was hopelessly ambitious and needed to be removed. During a great horse race, Basilius himself stabbed Bardas to death. He then took his place as head of the army. Years later, when the emperor, now in financial trouble, asked Basilius to repay some of the money he had borrowed, Basilius refused. He had grown more powerful than the man who made him. Soon after, he had the emperor murdered in his sleep and proclaimed himself the new ruler. Michael staked his future on gratitude, but gratitude is a burden. Friendship blinded him to the interests of his friend. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. In 1850, Otto von Bismarck, a passionate supporter of Prussian might, dreamed of German unification, which would mean war with Austria. But he sensed the Prussian military was not yet ready. At the height of war fever, Bismarck gave a speech in Parliament that astonished all who heard it. He spoke for peace, defending Austria's actions and detailing the horrors of a premature war. The country was fooled. Believing he had changed his heart, the king made him a minister. From this position, Bismarck secretly strengthened the military and accomplished what he had wanted all along: the humiliation of Austria and the unification of Germany. By being completely insincere and sending misleading signals, he deceived everyone, concealed his purpose, and attained everything he wanted. Law 4. Always say less than necessary. When you're trying to impress people with words, the more you say, the more common you appear, and the less in control. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. Your silence will make other people uncomfortable. Humans are machines of interpretation and explanation. They must know what you are thinking. When you carefully control what you reveal, they cannot pierce your meaning. They will jump in, nervously filling the silence with comments that reveal valuable information about themselves and their weaknesses. Once the words are out, you cannot take them back. Keep them under control. Be particularly careful with sarcasm. The momentary satisfaction you gain with your biting words will be outweighed by the price you pay. Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Through reputation alone, you can intimidate and win. Once it slips, however, you are vulnerable and will be attacked on all sides. Make your reputation unassailable. During China's War of the Three Kingdoms, the great General Zhuge Liang, known as the Sleeping Dragon, cultivated a reputation for being the cleverest man in China, one who always had a trick up his sleeve. This reputation struck fear into his enemies. Once, when resting in a small town with only 100 men, he was alerted that an enemy force of 150,000 was approaching. Instead of panicking, Liang ordered his men to open the city gates, take down their flags, and hide. He then sat on the most visible part of the city wall, wearing a Taoist robe, and began to chant and play his lute. When the enemy army arrived, their general, Sima Yi, recognized Liang. He saw the empty city and the calm man on the wall. Certain it was a trap set by the brilliant sleeping dragon, he ordered an immediate retreat. A powerful reputation can put a vast army on the defensive without a single arrow being fired. Law 6. Court attention at all cost. Everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. Never let yourself get lost in the crowd or buried in oblivion. Stand out. Be conspicuous at all cost. P.T. Barnum understood this better than anyone. To draw crowds to his museum, he once employed a beggar. He gave the man 5 bricks and instructed him to walk a slow circuit of several city blocks. At certain points, he was to lay a brick on the sidewalk. On the return journey, he was to replace it with one he held. He was to remain serious and answer no questions. On the man's first walk, hundreds of people watched his mysterious movements. By his 4th circuit, onlookers swarmed around him, debating what he was doing. Every time the man entered the museum, he was followed by people who bought tickets just to keep watching him. The quality of the attention is irrelevant. Notoriety of any sort will bring you power. It is better to be slandered and attacked than to be ignored. Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Use the wisdom, knowledge, and legwork of other people to further your own cause. Not only will such assistance save you valuable time and energy, it will give you a godlike aura of efficiency and speed. In the end, your helpers will be forgotten, and you will be remembered. Never do yourself what others can do for you. Consider the dynamic between Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. Tesla was a brilliant inventor who wanted to do everything on his own, exhausting himself in the process. Edison, on the other hand, was a businessman and a publicist. He was not a great scientific thinker, but he knew how to spot trends, hire the best in the field to do the work for him, and, if necessary, steal from his competitors. Tesla's name is known to a few, but his inventions were often credited to others, like Marconi for the radio. Edison's name, however, is associated with countless inventions he did not create himself. He understood a vital lesson. The credit for a creation is often more important than the creation itself. Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. When you force the other person to act, you are the one in control. It is always better to make your opponent come to you, abandoning his own plans in the process. Lure him with fabulous gains, then attack. You hold the cards. When Napoleon was exiled on the island of Elba, his former minister, Talleyrand, knew the emperor's ambition would be his undoing. Instead of trying to keep him imprisoned, Talleyrand and his allies baited Napoleon into escaping. They sent visitors to his court, whispering that the French people were more loyal to him than ever and would welcome his return. Napoleon, believing he was the master of his own daring escape, took the bait. He returned to France, raised an army, and led the country into a war it could not win. By making Napoleon come to them, his enemies controlled the time and place of his final defeat at Waterloo. They laid a sweet and irresistible trap, and Napoleon walked right into it. Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a Pyrrhic victory. The resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than any momentary change of opinion. It is much more powerful to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate. When Michelangelo completed his magnificent statue of David, the mayor of Florence, Piero Soderini, came to see it. Fancying himself an art connoisseur, he declared the statue perfect, except that the nose was too big. Michelangelo realized that Soderini was standing too close to the giant figure to have the proper perspective. Instead of arguing, he gestured for the mayor to follow him up the scaffolding. He picked up his chisel, along with a handful of marble dust he had hidden in his hand. Tapping lightly on the chisel and letting the dust fall, he created the appearance of working. After a few moments, he stood aside. "Look at it now," he said. The mayor replied, "I like it better. You've made it come alive." No one was offended, and Michelangelo's point was proven without a single word of argument. Law 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. You can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You may feel you are helping the drowning man, but you are only precipitating your own disaster. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. Associate with the happy and fortunate instead. Dancer Lola Montez had a powerful and destructive character. She attracted men with her wiles, but kept them enthralled with the force of her emotions. Men were sucked into the maelstrom she churned up around her. They felt confused, upset, but also more alive. Her lovers found themselves embroiled in her quarrels, her instability, her disasters. One promising young man was killed in a duel over her. King Ludwig of Bavaria was nearly driven from his throne by the civil unrest she caused. The infecting character stems from an inward instability that radiates outward, drawing disaster upon itself. When you suspect you are in the presence of an infector, do not argue. Do not try to help. Flee their presence or suffer the consequences. Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. To maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. The more you are relied on, the more freedom you have. Make people depend on you for their happiness and prosperity, and you have nothing to fear. Never teach them enough so that they can do without you. When Otto von Bismarck entered Prussian politics, he did not align himself with the powerful. Instead, he sought out weak rulers with whom he could create a relationship of dependency. He became their strength, their intelligence, their spine. He courted King Frederick William IV when the king was at a low point, defending him when others attacked. In time, the king grew to depend on Bismarck's strength. When the king died, his brother William, who disliked Bismarck, assumed the throne. But he too was weak and surrounded by enemies. He needed Bismarck's strong-arm tactics to keep his enemies at bay. He made Bismarck his prime minister, and though they often quarreled, the king understood his own dependency. He could not function without him. Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. One sincere and honest move will cover over dozens of dishonest ones. Open-hearted gestures of honesty and generosity bring down the guard of even the most suspicious people. Once your selective honesty opens a hole in their armor, you can deceive and manipulate them at will. It is a powerful form of distraction because it turns your target into a child, eagerly lapping up any kind of affectionate gesture. It is the perfect tool for the con artist. For who will distrust a person literally caught in the act of being honest? Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. If you need to turn to an ally for help, do not bother to remind him of your past assistance and good deeds. He will find a way to ignore you. Instead, uncover something in your request or in your alliance with him that will benefit him, and emphasize it out of all proportion. He will respond enthusiastically when he sees something to be gained for himself. In ancient Greece, the city-state of Corinth sent an ambassador to Athens, reminding the Athenians of their past generosity and asking for loyalty based on friendship and gratitude. The ambassador spoke passionately, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. Soon after, an ambassador from Corcyra, Corinth's enemy, came to Athens. He offered no friendship, no appeals to mercy. He admitted his city had never helped Athens before. Instead, he made a pragmatic appeal to self-interest. Corcyra had a powerful navy, second only to Athens. An alliance between them would create a formidable force, one that could intimidate their rivals. The Athenians, being realists, voted overwhelmingly to ally with Corcyra. They cared little for past favors. They cared for what added to their power. Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Knowing about your rival is critical. Use spies to gather valuable information that will keep you a step ahead. Better still, play the spy yourself. In polite social encounters, learn to probe. Ask indirect questions to get people to reveal their weaknesses and intentions. There is no occasion that is not an opportunity for artful spying. The great art dealer Joseph Duveen was determined to make the industrialist Andrew Mellon a client. Mellon was a stiff, taciturn man who had no desire to meet the talkative Duveen. For several years, Duveen secretly put Mellon's household staff on his own payroll, worming valuable information out of them. He learned the man's habits, tastes, and phobias. By the time he finally orchestrated a meeting at the National Gallery in London, he knew Mellon's taste inside and out. He dazzled the magnate with his knowledge, and they seemed to have remarkably similar tastes. Mellon was pleasantly surprised, and for the rest of his life, became Duveen's most generous client. Such is the power of artful spying. It makes you seem clairvoyant. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. All great leaders since Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed completely. If one ember is left alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out. More is lost through stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The enemy will recover and will seek revenge. Crush him, not only in body, but in spirit. In ancient China, the general Xiang Yu had his rival Liu Pang trapped and defeated on multiple occasions. Yet, each time, a fatal sympathy made him hesitate. He remembered they were once comrades and pulled back, showing mercy. Liu Pang, however, learned the brutal lesson of power. When the tables finally turned and he gained the upper hand, he showed no such hesitation. He lured Xiang Yu into a false treaty, then slaughtered his army. Xiang Yu, alone and on foot, slit his own throat. Liu Pang, the merciless one, went on to found the Han Dynasty, which ruled for 400 years. Power cannot be dealt with in halves. Reconciliation is out of the question. Only one side can win, and it must win totally. Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Too much circulation makes the price go down. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. If you are already established in a group, temporary withdrawal from it will make you more talked about, even more admired. You must learn when to leave. Create value through scarcity. In ancient media, a man named Deioces made a name for himself as a fair and wise judge. Soon, people from all over the land came to him to settle their disputes. At the height of his power, however, Deioces suddenly retired, complaining that he was neglecting his own affairs. The country descended back into chaos. With the sudden withdrawal of a powerful arbiter, crime increased and contempt for the law grew. The people, realizing what they had lost, came begging for him to rule them as king. Deioces had discovered the truth of this law. By making himself too available, he had lost the respect of the people. By withdrawing completely, he let them taste what life was like without him. What withdraws, what becomes scarce, suddenly seems to deserve our respect and honor. Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Humans are creatures of habit with an insatiable need to see familiarity in other people's actions. Your predictability gives them a sense of control. Turn the tables. Be deliberately unpredictable. Behavior that seems to have no consistency or purpose will keep them off balance, and they will wear themselves out trying to explain your moves. Taken to an extreme, this strategy can intimidate and terrorize. In the 1972 World Chess Championship, Bobby Fischer faced Boris Spassky. Spassky was a brilliant psychologist who could read his opponent's strategy and use it against him. So Fischer did everything he could to scramble his old patterns. He arrived late for matches, made terrible blunders on purpose, forfeited a game, and complained endlessly about the chairs and cameras. Spassky, known for his level-headedness, slowly melted down. He could not figure out his opponent. He began to complain of hallucinations, believing Fischer was hypnotizing him. Overwhelmed by the psychological terror of unpredictability, he resigned. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. The world is dangerous, and enemies are everywhere. A fortress seems the safest, but isolation exposes you to more dangers than it protects you from. It cuts you off from valuable information. It makes you conspicuous and an easy target. It is better to circulate among people, find allies, mingle. You are shielded from your enemies by the crowd. The first emperor of China, Chin Shi Huangti, grew so terrified of human contact that he withdrew deeper and deeper into his magnificent palace. It had 270 pavilions, all connected by secret underground passageways, allowing him to move without anyone seeing him. He slept in a different room every night, and anyone who inadvertently laid eyes on him was instantly beheaded. He died alone, far from his family and friends, accompanied only by a minister and a handful of eunuchs. He lost contact with the sources of his power, and his empire crumbled soon after. Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. There are many different kinds of people in the world, and you can never assume that everyone will react to your strategies in the same way. Deceive or outmaneuver some people, and they will spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. They are wolves in lamb's clothing. Choose your victims and opponents carefully, then never offend or deceive the wrong person. There are 5 dangerous types you must recognize. The arrogant and proud man, who will seek vengeance for any perceived slight. The hopelessly insecure man, whose fragile ego will lead him to attack you in small bites that take forever to notice. Mr. Suspicion, who sees the worst in other people and imagines everyone is after him. The serpent with a long memory, who will show no anger on the surface, but will calculate and wait, exacting a cold-blooded revenge when the time is right. And finally, the plain, unassuming, and often unintelligent man, who is not dangerous because he will harm you, but because he will waste your time and energy in trying to deceive him. Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. It is the fool who always rushes to take sides. Do not commit to any side or cause but yourself. By maintaining your independence, you become the master of others, playing people against one another, making them pursue you. When Queen Elizabeth I ascended the throne of England, the issue of her finding a husband was debated endlessly. The most handsome and eligible bachelors in the realm vied for her hand. Kings and princes from across Europe wooed her, knowing that a marriage would seal a powerful alliance. But Elizabeth had witnessed the mistakes of her cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots, who, by marrying, became embroiled in conflicts not of her choosing. Elizabeth played a lifelong game of flirting and withdrawing, encouraging the attention of her suitors, but never committing. She used the possibility of marriage to forge alliances, but the moment she committed to any single suitor would have been the moment she lost her power. By keeping her independence above all, she protected her power and made herself an object of worship. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. No one likes feeling stupider than the next person. The trick, then, is to make your victims feel smart, and not just smart, but smarter than you are. Once convinced of this, they will never suspect that you may have ulterior motives. In the 1860s, two prospectors, Arnold and Slack, pulled off the great American diamond hoax. They appeared in San Francisco with a bag of uncut diamonds, claiming to have found a mine in the West. They played the part of simple-minded country folk, and the most devious financiers of the time, including Baron Rothschild, fell for the con. No one believed these hayseeds could be capable of such an audacious scam. The prospectors simply observed the law of appearing more stupid than their mark. The feeling of intellectual superiority you give to others will disarm their suspicion. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. When you are weaker, never fight for honor's sake. Choose surrender instead. Surrender gives you time to recover, time to torment and irritate your conqueror, time to wait for his power to wane. Do not give him the satisfaction of fighting and defeating you. Surrender first. In the 1940s, the writer Bertolt Brecht was summoned before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Other writers who were summoned chose confrontation, arguing with the committee and refusing to answer questions. They gained public sympathy, but were blacklisted and lost years of profitable work. Brecht chose a different path. He appeared the very picture of congeniality, smoking a cigar and answering questions politely. He used an interpreter to play subtle games with language, and his elusive answers baffled the committee members. He appeared to yield, but in doing so, he mocked the committee's authority, kept his freedom to write, and left the country the next day, never to return. He understood that by yielding, you in fact control the situation. Law 23. Concentrate your forces. Conserve your forces and energies by keeping them concentrated at their strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper than by flitting from one shallow mine to another. Intensity defeats extensity every time. The Rothschild banking family had humble beginnings in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt. The city's laws made it impossible for them to mingle outside the ghetto, so they turned this into a virtue, becoming self-reliant and unified. The founder, Mayor Amschel, understood the power of concentration. First, he allied himself with one powerful family, becoming their primary banker instead of spreading his services out. Second, he entrusted his business only to his children. His 5 sons established branches in the major capitals of Europe, but they remained a tight-knit unit, sharing information through a private courier system and a secret code. By concentrating their forces and excluding outsiders, they became the most powerful financial force in the world. Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. The perfect courtier thrives in a world where everything revolves around power and political dexterity. He has mastered the art of indirection. He flatters, yields to superiors, and asserts power over others in the most oblique and graceful manner. Learn and apply the laws of courtiership, and there will be no limit to how far you can rise in the court. The laws of court politics are timeless. Avoid ostentation. Practice nonchalance. Be frugal with flattery. Arrange to be noticed. Never be the bearer of bad news. The great courtiers of history have mastered the science of manipulating people. They make the king feel more kingly. They make everyone else fear their power. They are magicians of appearance, knowing that most things at court are judged by how they seem. Law 25. Recreate yourself. Do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced, and your character will seem larger than life. In the 19th century, the writer Aurore Dupin-Dudevant refused the limited role society offered women. She moved to Paris, cut her hair, wore men's clothing, and adopted a new name, George Sand. This strange male-female writer fascinated the public. She was not merely being herself, she was creating a persona that gave her freedom and power. The world wants to assign you a role in life. Once you accept that role, you are doomed. Your new identity will protect you from the world precisely because it is not you. It is a costume you put on and take off. Law 26. Keep your hands clean. You must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain such a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat's paws to disguise your involvement. The Chinese general Tsao, facing a mutiny from his starving troops, knew he had made a critical mistake in letting supplies run low. Apologies would show weakness. Instead, he summoned his chief of commissariat. "I want to ask you to lend me something," he said. "Your head to show to the troops." The chief was innocent, but Tsao had him beheaded, claiming he was the cause of the shortage. The soldiers, seeing a scapegoat punished, stopped grumbling. The powerful are undone not by the mistakes they make, but by how they deal with them. Find a convenient scapegoat and let someone else be blamed. Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. People have an overwhelming desire to believe in something. Become the focal point of such desire by offering them a cause, a new faith to follow. Keep your words vague, but full of promise. Emphasize enthusiasm over rationality and clear thinking. Give your new disciples rituals to perform. Ask them to make sacrifices on your behalf. In the absence of organized religion and grand causes, your new belief system will bring you untold power. To create a cult, you must attract attention not through actions, which are too clear, but through words, which are hazy and deceptive. Dangle in front of people a new cause, a get-rich-quick scheme, or a mysterious panacea, and they will leap from the water as one to take the bait. Law 28. Enter action with boldness. If you are unsure of a course of action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitations will infect your execution. Timidity is dangerous. Better to enter with boldness. Any mistakes you commit through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. Everyone admires the bold. No one honors the timid. In 1925, the con artist Victor Lustig invited the most successful scrap metal dealers in Paris to a secret meeting. His plan, to to sell the Eiffel Tower. The idea was so audacious, so improbable, that it seemed real. One dealer, Monsieur P., began to have doubts. Lustig, sensing hesitation, did not back down. Instead, he complained about his low government salary, implying he was open to a bribe. This act of corruption, a bolder lie on top of the first, ironically sealed the deal. The dealer's confidence was restored, and he handed over the money. The bolder the lie, the more convincing it becomes. Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. The ending is everything. Plan all the way to it, taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that might reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances, and you will know when to stop. The explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa had a dream of glory and wealth. He became the first European to see the Pacific Ocean and heard rumors of a golden empire to the south. But he was locked in the moment, always reacting emotionally, never thinking ahead. He went part way, leaving the door open for others to take over. He did not secure his position or neutralize his rivals. A few years later, his former friend Francisco Pizarro arrested him. Balboa's head fell into a basket. Years after that, Pizarro conquered the land of gold Balboa had dreamed of. Most men are ruled by the heart, not the head. Their plans are vague. But improvisation is never a substitute for thinking several steps ahead. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Your actions must seem natural and executed with ease. All the toil and practice that go into them, and also all the clever tricks, must be concealed. When you act effortlessly, as if you could do much more. Avoid the temptation of revealing how hard you work. It only raises questions. Great escape artist Harry Houdini performed feats that seemed to contradict the laws of human capacity. But it was not magic that gave him his powers. It was hard work and endless practice, all of which he carefully concealed. Day and night, he studied the workings of locks and researched centuries-old sleight-of-hand tricks. He spent every other moment working his body, learning to control his muscles and breathing. His escapes from death, always graceful and easy, made him look like a Superman. Keep your effort and your tricks to yourself, and you seem to have the grace and ease of a god. Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. The best deceptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they are in control, but are actually your puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, whichever one they choose. Force them to make choices between the lesser of two evils, both of which serve your purpose. Put them on the horns of a dilemma. They are gored wherever they turn. When Ivan the Terrible of Russia found his power slipping away, he did not fight his rebellious nobles. Instead, he withdrew, leaving the capital without a leader. For a month, terror gripped the city as people feared a return to the chaos and civil war that had plagued them before. When they finally begged him to return, he offered them a choice. Either they grant him absolute and unquestioned power, or they could find a new leader and face the consequences. Faced with the choice between a tyrant and certain ruin, the people gave him the power he had wanted all along. They believed they had chosen, but in reality, they were playing with the cards he had dealt them. Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth and reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There is great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. In the 16th century, the city-state of Venice was in a state of decline. A mysterious alchemist named Bragadino arrived, claiming he could multiply gold through a secret substance. The Venetian Senate, desperate for a return to their city's former glory, funded his lavish lifestyle. He produced no gold, but he produced a fantasy, a hope for a sudden, magical transformation. He understood that people rarely believe their problems arise from their own misdeeds. They want to believe salvation will come from the outside. Promise a gradual improvement through hard work, and people will scorn you. Promise the moon, the pot of gold, and you will have followers. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Everyone has a weakness, a gap in the castle wall. That weakness is usually an insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion or need. It can also be a small, secret pleasure. Either way, once found, it is a thumbscrew you can turn to your advantage. In the 17th century, Cardinal Richelieu of France saw that the true power behind the throne was not the young king, but his mother, Queen Marie de Medicis. He knew she was an insecure woman who needed constant masculine attention. He showered her with affection and respect, and even befriended her favorite, Concini. By controlling the Queen Mother, he controlled the one person who had the king's ear. Even after the king came of age, he continued to be influenced by his mother, and she, in turn, was influenced by Richelieu. The cardinal understood that the person in control is often not the king or queen, but someone behind the scenes. Find that weak link, and you find the key to their will. Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. The way you carry yourself will often determine how you are treated. In the long run, appearing vulgar or common will make people disrespect you. For a king respects himself and inspires the same sentiment in others. By acting regally and confident of your powers, you make yourself seem destined to wear a crown. Christopher Columbus was a mediocre explorer, the son of a humble weaver. Yet, he charmed the nobility of Spain and Portugal. He projected a sense of confidence that was completely out of proportion to his means. He did not act like an aggressive upstart, but with the quiet, calm self-assurance of the nobility themselves. They felt an instant affinity for him, for he carried himself just as they did, elevated above the crowd, destined for greatness. It is within your power to set your own price. How you carry yourself reflects what you think of yourself. If you ask for little, people will assume that is all you are worth. Law 35. Master the art of timing. Never seem to be in a hurry. Hurrying betrays a lack of control over yourself and over time. Always seem patient, as if you know that everything will come to you eventually. Become a detective of the right moment. Sniff out the spirit of the times, the trends that will carry you to power. Learn to stand back when the time is not yet ripe, and to strike fiercely when it has reached fruition. Joseph Fouché, Minister of Police during the French Revolution and under Napoleon, thrived through his mastery of timing. He always looked 2 steps ahead, finding the wave that would carry him to power and riding it. He understood that recognizing the prevailing winds does not mean running with them. Any potent social movement creates a powerful reaction. Fauché learned to anticipate that reaction, waiting for the tide to turn and carry him back to power. Without patience as your sword and shield, your timing will fail. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. By acknowledging a petty problem, you give it existence and credibility. The more attention you pay an enemy, the stronger you make him. If there is something you want but cannot have, show contempt for it. The less interest you reveal, the more superior you seem. When King Henry VIII of England sought to annul his marriage, Pope Clement VII stood in his way. The Pope tried every threat in the book, but nothing worked. Henry simply ignored him. He broke with the Roman Catholic Church, established the Church of England with himself as its head, and married Anne Boleyn. The Pope fumed. No one had ever treated him so contemptuously. But Henry had played a devastating power game, total disdain. By ignoring the Pope, he canceled him out. This is the ultimate power pose. You are the king, and you ignore what offends you. Law 37. Create compelling spectacles. Striking imagery and grand symbolic gestures create the aura of power. Everyone responds to them. Stage spectacles for those around you, full of arresting visuals and radiant symbols that heighten your presence. Dazzled by appearances, no one will notice what you are really doing. In the 16th century, Diane de Poitiers, the mistress of France's King Henry II, was 37 when he was just 17. As he grew into a king, she knew she had to combat the reality of her aging. Her secret weapons were symbols and images. She intertwined her initials with his, creating a motif that Henry put everywhere. More astutely, she identified herself with the Roman goddess Diana, her namesake, the goddess of the hunt, a symbol of chastity and purity. She transformed her castle into a Roman temple, filled it with symbols of crescent moons and stags, and commissioned sculptures of herself as the goddess. The king and the court were overwhelmed. She was no longer just an aging courtesan. She was a mythic force, destined for greatness. Words put you on the defensive. The visual, on the other hand, short-circuits the labyrinth of words. Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. If you make a show of going against the times, flaunting your unconventional ideas and unorthodox ways, people will think that you only want attention and that you look down upon them. They will find a way to punish you for making them feel inferior. It is far safer to blend in and nurture the common touch. Share your originality only with tolerant friends and those who are sure to appreciate your uniqueness. The philosopher Tommaso Campanella faced persecution from the Inquisition for his heretical beliefs. To save his life, he feigned madness, letting his inquisitors believe his ideas stemmed from an uncontrollable unsoundness of mind. Later, he wrote a book, The Hispanic Monarchy, which promoted the exact opposite of his own beliefs, showing his conversion to orthodoxy. Finally, in another book, he pretended to disagree with dangerous ideas, but in the course of his disagreement, he gave those ideas powerful expression and exposure. Combining an outward display of conformity with an inward expression of his true beliefs, Campanella showed that he had learned his lesson. Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. Anger and emotion are strategically counterproductive. You must always stay calm and objective. But if you can make your enemies angry while staying calm yourself, you gain a decided advantage. Put your enemies off balance. Find the chink in their vanity through which you can rattle them, and you hold the strings. When Napoleon discovered that his foreign minister, Talleyrand, had conspired against him, he exploded in a furious tirade. As the emperor screamed and stamped his feet, Talleyrand leaned on the mantelpiece, looking completely indifferent, calm, and bored. The sight of a subordinate serene in the face of his anger pushed Napoleon to the edge. He completely lost control of himself. After the outburst, Talleyrand slowly turned to his fellow ministers and said, "What a pity, gentlemen, that so great a man should have such bad manners." Word quickly spread of the emperor's tantrum. For the first time, people had seen the great conqueror lose his cool under fire. A feeling spread that he was on the way down. This was the beginning of the end. Law 40. Despise the free lunch. What is offered for free is dangerous. It usually involves either a trick or a hidden obligation. What has worth is worth paying for. By paying your own way, you stay clear of gratitude, guilt, and deceit. It is also often wise to pay the full price. There is no cutting corners with excellence. Be lavish with your money and keep it circulating, for generosity is a sign and a magnet for power. The powerful learn early to protect their most valuable resources, independence and room to maneuver. By paying the full price, they keep themselves free of dangerous entanglements and worries. Powerful people judge everything by what it costs, not just in money, but in time, dignity, and peace of mind. Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. What happens first always appears better and more original than what comes after. If you succeed a great man or have a famous parent, you will have to accomplish double their achievements to outshine them. Do not get lost in their shadow or stuck in a past not of your own making. Slay the overbearing father, disparage his legacy, and gain power by shining in your own way. Alexander the Great had a dominant passion as a young man, an intense dislike for his father, King Philip of Macedonia. While other sons of powerful men were content to inherit wealth, Alexander wanted only to outdo his father. He made himself the very opposite of Philip. Where Philip was cautious, Alexander was bold. Where Philip was bombastic, Alexander was a man of few words. After Philip's death, Alexander did not rest on his father's triumphs. He set out to surpass them, conquering Persia, a prize that had eluded his father, and blazing his own path. He instinctively recognized that privileges of birth are impediments to power. Be merciless with the past, not only with your father, but with your own earlier achievements. Law 42. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter. Trouble can often be traced to a single strong individual, the stirrer, the arrogant underling, the poisoner of goodwill. If you allow such people room to operate, others will succumb to their influence. Do not wait for the troubles they cause to multiply. Neutralize their influence by isolating or banishing them. Strike at the source of the trouble, and the sheep will scatter. In medieval Florence, the poet Dante Alighieri stood as a powerful and eloquent opponent to Pope Boniface's attempts to sow disorder in the city. To neutralize him, the Pope lured Dante to Rome for negotiations and kept him there. With Dante, the city's backbone, isolated, the political factions in Florence fell apart. The Pope's allies easily took control. Boniface understood a key precept of power. One resolute person can turn a flock of sheep into a den of lions. So he isolated the troublemaker. Without its leader, the city crumbled. Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. Coercion creates a reaction that will eventually work against you. You must seduce others into wanting to move in your direction. A person you have seduced becomes your loyal pawn. The way to seduce others is to operate on their individual psychologies and weaknesses. Soften up the resistant by working on their emotions, playing on what they hold dear and what they fear. Ignore the hearts and minds of others, and they will grow to hate you. The master strategist Zhuge Liang had to pacify the barbarian King Menghuo. Instead of crushing him with force, he chose to win his heart. He captured Menghuo 7 times, and 7 times he released him. He treated Menghuo's captured soldiers with respect, regaling them with food and wine before setting them free. Over time, the king's own troops turned against him, until finally, Menghuo fell to the ground before Liang, sobbing. "Yours is the majesty of heaven," he cried. "We men of the south will never again offer resistance to your rule." Liang knew that force would only breed resentment. By seducing Menghuo, he converted a potential enemy into a pillar of support. Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. The mirror reflects reality, but it is also the perfect tool for deception. When you mirror your enemies, doing exactly as they do, they cannot figure out your strategy. The mirror effect mocks and humiliates them, making them overreact. By holding up a mirror to their psyches, you seduce them with the illusion that you share their values. By holding up a mirror to their actions, you teach them a lesson. Few can resist the power of the mirror effect. The Russian Tsar Ivan the Terrible, taunted as a boy by nobles who mocked his royal status, later mirrored their actions perfectly. He abdicated his throne and elevated a general of Tartar birth, a man the Russian nobles looked down upon, to be the new Tsar. For 2 years, Ivan lived as a humble courtier, bowing before the powerless ruler while the nobles squirmed. He was mirroring their own game back at them. They had made him feel like a pretender, so he showed them what Russia looked like under a real pretender. The chaos that ensued made the people beg for his return. Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Everyone understands the need for change in the abstract, but on the day-to-day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt. If you are new to a position of power, make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it feel like a gentle improvement on the past. The great communist leader Mao Zedong faced a people deeply attached to the past. Instead of struggling against it, he turned it to his advantage. He cloaked the revolution in the clothing of ancient China. He presented his army as an extension of the robber band from the classic novel, The Water Margin. He represented himself not as a Chinese Lenin, but as a modern Zhuge Liang, a hero from the great Chinese tradition of warrior statesmen. Radical change had to be cloaked in the comfortable clothes of the past. The past is powerful. Use it to your advantage. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. Appearing better than others is always dangerous, but most dangerous of all is to appear to have no faults or weaknesses. Envy creates silent enemies. It is smart to occasionally display defects and admit to harmless vices in order to deflect envy and appear more human and approachable. Only gods and the dead can seem perfect with impunity. The playwright Joe Orton was a brilliant success, a charming and handsome figure who rose from nowhere. His partner, Kenneth Halliwell, had once been his mentor and supporter. But as Orton grew more successful, Halliwell began to deteriorate. He was consumed by envy. Orton, unable to understand the depth of his partner's insecurity, tried to help him launch a career as an artist, but this only registered as charity and guilt. One morning, Halliwell bludgeoned Orton to death before taking his own life. He could not endure the presence of someone so apparently perfect. Never underestimate the power of envy. Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for in victory. Learn when to stop. The moment of victory is often the moment of greatest peril. In the heat of victory, arrogance and overconfidence can push you past the goal you had aimed for, and by going too far, you make more enemies than you defeat. Do not allow success to go to your head. Set a goal, and when you reach it, stop. After building a vast empire, Cyrus the Great of Persia set his sights on the Massagetae, a fierce warrior race. Their queen, Tomarus, warned him to be content with what he had. But Cyrus, believing himself superhuman, scoffed at her. He used a trick to capture her son, who then killed himself in humiliation. The queen, overwhelmed with grief, engaged Cyrus's troops in a bloody battle. The Persians were decimated, and Cyrus himself was killed. One act of arrogance undid all of his good work. There is nothing more intoxicating than victory, and nothing more dangerous. Law 48. Assume formlessness. By taking a shape, by having a visible plan, you open yourself to attack. Instead of taking a form for your enemy to grasp, keep yourself adaptable and on the move. Accept the fact that nothing is certain and no law is fixed. The best way to protect yourself is to be as fluid and formless as water. Never bet on stability or lasting order. Everything changes. The ancient Spartans built a society dedicated to the art of war. Their system was rigid, disciplined, and powerful. But like a turtle, they sacrificed mobility for safety. While their neighbors, the Athenians, took to the sea, adapting to a world of constant motion, the Spartans entombed themselves in their own system. In the end, it was not the armies of Athens that defeated them, but Athenian money, which flowed everywhere and could not be controlled. In the face of the world's harshness, a rigid system will always spell disaster.